What?
Are we gonna have problems with this motherfucker again?
You're
Welcome to NC Political Tea, the show where North Carolina's political scene gets served piping hot, grassroots style. We're here to shake up the status quo with unapologetically conservative takes and a whole lot of Southern charm. From the halls of Congress to under the dome, we're exposing the deals, the drama, and the dirt that the mainstream media won't touch. Who's fighting for your freedom? Who's selling out to the woke mob? And who's about to get roasted? No fluff, no filters, and absolutely no time for spineless politics. Just bold Republican commentary, sharp analysis, and enough sass to make the left squirm. So grab your sweet tea or something stronger, and let's dive into the hottest headlines and juiciest scandals rocking the Tar Heel state. This is NC Political Tea, where the truth always gets served.
The truth always does get served one way or the other way.
Well, I see you're in a nice hotel room tonight.
I am. Well, I'm on location tonight, guys. So I will be in DC until Friday, actually. So
Well, I hope you're doing something fun and interesting and maybe popping in on a congressman or so.
oh, I am. Several already and a hearing or two. And then we've got the DC Purim party that'll be on Thursday. And that is like Halloween for Jews. It's going to be great.
Well, good for you. I'm still in North Carolina, in Western North Carolina. There's so much going on. Like I may have to look at our sheet tonight because their news is breaking by the minute.
I know. We came on and you're like, oh my gosh, the education laid off, 50% of its workforce? So I think it's only fair that I show that right now, right?
Sure.
Because that was just the hot and the breaking. So tell us about what's going on.
Well, it looks like this morning, the Department of Education sent out a notice that as of Friday, people don't have to go back into work and that 50% of the workforce in the Department of Education is going to be laid off effective March the 21st.
Interesting. And as
I would say administrative leave, not laid off.
Okay. And these are probably administrators. That is to say that people that are not in direct contact with, the field.
Right. Well, the big breaking story for us is how does this impact North Carolina? So this is the start, but we will follow up and see how the impacts flow to North Carolina.
Well, people are already panicking. Our head of education, state school board, they've already, been protesting. So they already have a lot to say. But look, over the weekend, we'd be remiss if we did not touch on this, that in Syria, terrorism, we always think it's something so distant. And we know it's not because it happens here as well. But Christians and Druze, that's a form of Muslims. Actually, you'll see them a lot in Israel as well, have been forced to convert or die. And that's kind of what you're seeing here. A lot of people have been posting about it, been posting pictures. And you told me, don't post the video unless it's verified. So we will not.
Yeah. Well, I think this goes back to what we've been saying, and we keep saying it because it is here in our own state. And that is that this is not off our shores. It is here. There are people that do not like Christians and do not like Jews, and they're wanting us to die. That's a fact. And we know that. We see it on college campuses. We see it, in grocery stores. We see it in a lot of places. And I think people think we may be a little bit, I don't know what word I want to use, maybe alarmist, but that's really not true. The truth is, if we don't keep telling you what's happening, when it happens in your neighborhood, you won't be surprised because we're telling you.
Well, I know it's happening. I've been in terror attacks before. Sadly, I'm not the Lone Ranger. A lot of Americans have been. And we tell you this because, look, Tulsi Gabbard came out 2 weeks ago, head of the DNI, and she said our number one priority is to make sure that Islamic terrorism goes to the top. Listen to what she said in her confirmation hearing about this very situation.
She was right.
She knows a lot about it.
which was that a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change is widely been known, looked at, and studied, that ultimately
Can you see that? Okay, now
Yeah, I
you
can see it.
okay.
resulted in over $500 million being used to train who they called moderate rebels, but were actually fighters working with and aligned with al-Qaeda's affiliate on the ground in Syria, all to move forward with their regime change and not acknowledging what was obvious at the time and what has unfortunately borne true, which was that a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change wars in Iraq, the toppling of Gaddafi and Mubarak, while these are all dictators, would likely result in the rise of Islamist extremists like al-Qaeda taking power. I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance, and who has already begun to persecute and kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
Okay, this is a month ago.
And she was castigated for that by the left. They rolled their eyes at her and said that she was lying. And here we are, a month and a half, 2 months later, 50 days later, not quite, and she was right.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, that, by the way, that happens that's happened in Lebanon before. That happens everywhere that, you know, Islamic radicals take over. The interesting thing and the infuriating thing for me is that in Iraq, as well as Afghanistan, the U.S. State Department helped write the Constitution after we allegedly turned over the governance to new leaders. And in each one of them, Sharia law, which is what we've just seen, right, is the law of the land. So we essentially went to war for nothing.
Well, we went to war and then we turned it over and let them become the fanatics that we knew they are.
Correct. We've obviously seen that in Afghanistan. We're looking at it now. And, you know, it is on the march throughout the world. Look at Europe as well. So Cato just released a story today. Let's see. Am I capable of getting it up here? We're having a little bit of a problem, guys, tonight. Okay. And it's not user error. I'm going to blame the software, or I'm going to blame DC. So this is a 50-year look back. Now Cato is a libertarian think tank, and they're definitely not hawkish. They're more like in the cut of Thomas Massey, who I despise. But anyway, this is what they've come up with, and I'm going to put the highlights up for your review. I'm just with this showing you that it exists. Okay, so we have it existing. All right. Okay, I'm telling you guys, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty. Whoops.
We added that slide last, so there you go.
All right, so here's what it was. It was a look back, and it said, look, foreign-born terrorists were responsible for this many murders in the U.S. from 1975 to 2004. Okay.
I think that's low.
Well, it is, and it's 9/11 as well. I mean, again, this is the point is Islamism accounted for 68% of all foreign-born terrorists, 99% of terrorism-related murders, and 95% of injuries. Read that again. For a foreign-born terrorist, okay, it's Islam. So it is here. And today they published a study, and I thought, wow, that is so interesting, because here we have what Tulsi Gabbard said, what she's focusing on. Tourist visas were the most common entry pathway for terrorists.
It tells me that we have a lax policy on tourist visas. And I think we do in comparison to other countries.
Well, not only that, but student visas. So this is another look back that you and I did in January about a student that needs to be deported immediately. They're deporting them from Colombia. They're deporting them everywhere. But this is one from UNC, and you were very telling. Actually, you summed it up perfectly in what you said about the situation.
This guy from Jordan is able to go over there and assault Americans, intimidate the hell out of Americans, be they professors or our young men and women over there.
or North Carolinians. Let's put it where it is. You come from another country and you harass people from the state you're a guest in.
And the country.
You're a guest in.
Now, yeah, absolutely. So he was being investigated for this. This is the handiwork of them.
Is this at the ROTC building?
It is. It is. And by the way, this is pretty routine, this vandalism at our crown jewel education.
Oldest school in America.
Our crown jewel of our university education system, writing this shit.
Public school.
Yeah, the papers reported that I think he's being looked at. This is what they build. By the way,
there, by the way, is that's Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad writing on that. So in other words, these people are not being deported for no reason. There are things, even with a green card that you're not allowed to do. It's part of the law.
Well, it's funny you should say that because someone challenged me on X today about that. And they said, illegals and aliens are afforded the same rights as in the Constitution as we are. No, they are not. They are not afforded the same rights. We have the right. They have a right to due process, but they have a right to get their ass kicked out of our country for the things they do, including calling for terrorist attacks.
Correct. I mean, this guy's physically assaulted people. He's number one. I will tell you this. He's number one in our get the F out of here list in North Carolina. Well, there's a couple of others, but on campus. And a prominent Jewish Democrat wrote in my feed underneath it that I need to call something completely irrelevant, that I needed to call out right-wing anti-Semites. In other words, not even addressing the issue, but so worried on germane topics. These people think it's a game. It most definitely is not a game.
No, and it's really interesting because I would say since we broke the story about what we knew was going on in mosques in Charlotte, I probably have had more folks come in after me too regarding these kinds of things. And here's what I have to say. I saved every one of your posts. I replied to them on purpose because I'm going to have somebody look into you because y'all are so dumb. Most of you use your real names.
Well, a lot of them don't. I mean, this whole spread of Islamism and actually silence. So it's spreading the Islamism and then saying, oh, okay, it's Islamophobia. And so it's a double-edged sword, but it's very intentional.
It is intentional. But when you come at me with this thing about, what about my daughter? What are you talking about? Your daughter? What about my daughter? She is a North Carolinian in a university. Your daughter is not. She's a guest here.
So someone's daughter or someone's mother.
Yeah, somebody came after me about their kid being a visa H1B visa student in our schools and also radical, clearly in the middle of all this.
Here's my advice. Tell her to mind her fucking manners. Follow the law.
That's right. Don't go to the party and start a fight.
Why? Yeah. Why is this difficult? I can tell you it's not difficult for the UAE. The UAE deports students that wear a keffiyeh. So if the Emirates can do it, why can't we do it?
It's not just the Emirates. This would happen. We've seen many women dressed in this keffiyeh too, and you've educated and highlighted they would not be allowed to wear that in most Middle Eastern countries.
That's right. And so they wear it here, and then it goes back to the freedom of speech argument, right? And then we get back to, again, expression of material support for terrorism does not have the same protections as free speech. And if the speaker is a foreign national, they damn sure don't have the same rights. And so, you know what? We're going to have to let the courts do the talking on this, I'm afraid.
They have done the talking. They're going to do some more.
Well, I hope so. I mean, all this stuff is going to go. It's going to be litigated through the court. And I'm waiting for it. I am here for it.
I am too. I mean, I think people don't realize we've been talking about this for a long time for a reason, because we've seen the pattern of where it's going. And we knew that Trump's not going to support this.
Correct. So we were the canary in the coal mine, as usual, Margo.
I know, but they think we're a bunch of bitchy women who talk about crap,
Well, we are women to talk about crap.
We were right. We were right.
Listen, right is right. Guilty is charged. So when in D.C., cover what's happening in D.C. This just happened. I want to hear your take on this. So the just passed.
Okay, my take on it is probably I'm not happy about this, I'll be honest with you, but I do believe it's necessary for one major reason. Tom Holman needs those funds.
Absolutely.
He has to get those people out. He doesn't have enough money in his budget to continue exporting people from this country. So if that's the main reason to allow us to continue until September, I'm willing to give Trump that much rope.
But he asked for it. So
he did for that reason, though.
He asked for it for this reason. Thomas Massey is only obstinate. He's a showboater. He's a grandstander. His behavior is bordered on anti-Semitism. Why? Why would I say that? So you're always saying that. Why? Because there's one predominantly Jewish country. There's over 114 Christian countries, 57 Arab countries. I don't ever hear him, besides Ukraine, bitch about that.
Well, he's not the only one that complained about this, though. I will say his compatriot from Kentucky.
Yeah.
His compatriot from Kentucky, who is in the Senate, Rand Paul, has also said he's not going to vote for this. So they're sticking to the Kentucky way, I guess. I don't know. But it is interesting that he also came out in support of Thomas Massey and said he's not going to vote for it either.
Well, they do drink a lot in Kentucky, right? What do they have? Whiskey or
bourbon? Kentucky bourbon.
Okay.
Cool. We don't care. We drink moonshine here.
Yeah, right. Or PJ.
That's right.
Remember that in college?
Right. Yeah, I do.
The old purple Jesus. Okay. If you don't get it, then you're probably not from the South.
That's right.
You know how you know someone is from the South? A woman is from the South.
She can shag, and that's a dance for those of y'all that are not from the South.
I cannot shag, but Jews probably can't shag.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
you can when you drink PJ. Anybody can.
Look, anything's possible with PJ. So what was I saying?
How do you know girls from the South?
It's not, I don't say I'm going up to Target. I'm going up to the Target.
Or the store. We just say the store. You can say it's the Target. We only have one store, so that's why I don't have to say what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's the. So you don't use the brand name. You use the. I'm going up to the Exxon.
The Walmart.
I'm going up to the Walmart is quintessential classic Southern woman.
So here's the delineation. It's the freeway or highway on the left coast, and it's the store on the right coast, right? So or on the west on the east coast. So it's always the 405, the 5. We don't say the in front of our highway.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So there's the break. We're more into the store. They're into the highway.
Oh yeah, we got to delineate. The Walmart is the best. All right. So there was a hearing today where they had all the mayor, well, not all, but 5 mayors come in from sanctuary cities to testify. And there were some funny moments and some pointed moments. And we've been on this, guys. We've been covering this week after week here because there's a lot of companion bills coming out from the General Assembly, for Republicans, obviously, and some dumb shit coming out from Democrats with respect. I said dumb shit and with respect in the same sentence. So that's disingenuous. But all right, let me put this up because it's going to be a little hard to keep a straight face.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I now recognize Chicago Mayor Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Comer. Thank you to the ranking member Connolly and to the members of this committee. I have the great privilege and honor of serving as mayor of the city of Chicago, the 3rd largest city in the nation.
Here we go.
Established by a Black Haitian man and a Potawatomi woman.
Excuse me?
Chicago is and always has been a proud city of immigrants. Generations of new arrivals, including the descendants of the enslaved during the Great Migration, created a vibrant city.
Okay, you know who did not, what? Like, what?
That's funny. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched snippets of it. I watched where Brandon Gill and I think Nancy Mace were like, yes or no, yes or no. None of them could do yes or no.
You love Virginia Fox.
They refused.
You're gonna love Virginia Fox, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, but he admitted that Chicago has a lot of these kind of people. This is when Dr. Phil and Tim Homan went out and started picking up absolute scumbag dirtbags off the street.
My mother says that Your mother's a citizen,
Yes.
but you're not?
Nope.
But you've never been deported before?
You Dr. Phil. You Dr. Phil.
Yeah? How do you know me?
No, I seen Dr. Phil, on TV.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an example of sanctuary cities, right? We got an illegal alien convicted of sex crimes involving children. And he's walking the streets of Chicago. Again, the downfall, the problem with a sanctuary city, that people like us walking the street rather than local law enforcement working with federal agents. This is what we're dealing with.
Okay. So notably absent from the mayor's diatribe, he named everybody else and their brother, didn't name these type of illegals who are walking the streets.
He didn't name the Polish or the Irish either, just to put it out there.
No, that's true. I loved Virginia Fox's performance here today. She was great.
From North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Johnson, in the last 4 years, how much has Chicago spent on care for illegal aliens?
Here he goes.
Thank you for that question, Congresswoman. So since 2022, since the governor of Texas began
Just
shipping.
tell me a number. I don't need a speech. Just tell me a number.
So since 2022, since.
Okay. The rest of it is, of course, bullshit. But and then Andy Biggs got up and he actually brought it home. I mean, he went down the list. There's 5 of them. There was, Boston, Eric Adams. There's a white dude, I think Denver. There's Chicago and some other place. Just each one would bloviate, more outrageous than the rest. He kind of tied it up in a neat knot. And we need to remember this for the sanctuary sheriffs we have here.
Any individual. Yeah, so when I look at your guys' ordinances, and I got them all up here, and there's the really interesting stuff. And Denver, I think you testified previously that you rely on the statutory section, am I right, of the state statute. So,
but here's a dirty little secret. States do not have control of immigration. That is a federal function, and it's been litigated over and over again in case law from Supreme to local.
let's just review this. There is a distinction, and some of you have made that. Mayor Johnson of Chicago made this repeatedly, and Mayor Wu of Boston did. There's a distinction between criminal warrant, and you say we cooperate on criminal warrant, but there's 2 levels of cooperation at least. There's a communication level, and there's a passing the person off. That's one level with the criminal. But the civil level, this is what I want to talk about for a second.
So he's got up the law that these mayors will be prosecuted under. That's the critical thing here. This is for us to understand in North Carolina, because we still have 5 sheriffs at least who will not cooperate.
All of these ordinances proscribe communication and transfer of someone where there's a civil warrant. Now, I know that all of you understand that a removal order is a civil order.
That's right.
And that means none of you and none of your agencies within your municipalities are communicating or passing over someone where there's a ICE removal detainer. So I don't care how many times, 1,226 or whatever it was in 7 years, I don't care how many times you do it, but if you're not doing it for civil orders, then you're allowing people who have a removal order, who've had due process, because that's how you get a removal order. You're allowing them to stay in the country. You're in violation of this law right here. You are.
Okay, and that goes for the smart asses up there at UNC. Remember, a dean or 2, an administrator or 2, a professor or 20, saying
and there's some doctors too.
We'd love to get those doctors, don't we?
Listen, a grocery store worker, could be a doctor, could be a lawyer. I don't care. If you violate the law, you're going home, and it ain't here.
Well, it's the people that are involved in like obstructing too. Remember those 2 dingbats from Durham?
Oh yeah, the ones that got in front of the camera with their wacky glasses and talked about the Indians that the Indians from Asia that were being deported.
Right. And speaking of wacky glasses, I've been told that these are my Jeffrey Dahmer glasses.
That's funny.
So with that, I don't think they look like that, but if they do, then people are not going to mess with me. So in other words, what he's trying to say is that you're interfering, you sanctuary city mayors are interfering with this federal law. And by the way, you're not allowed to make a law that supersedes that. So that's what's going on here. And we have our own problem.
We have a big problem, especially in Charlotte. And of course, we've got this guy in Wake County.
There's my county.
Right.
And now in light of that, he says, well, we're concerned about misunderstandings. HB 10, guys, is a state law. He doesn't need to be worried about that. He needs to be worried about the federal law, right? HB 10, it requires all sheriffs to cooperate. They already are. Durham. I mean, this is absolutely insane. So hopefully some of these sheriffs are going to be prosecuted. Wouldn't that be delicious?
And I think too, North Carolina is going to make this penalties more strict for sheriffs that do not comply with ICE. I mean, that's one of Destin Hall, the Speaker of the House. That's one of his big things is we're going to make you do your job. And your job is to cooperate. And federal law supersedes state law every day, all day.
Well, especially when it comes to immigration. That is the law of the land here. That's why Biden could leave the borders completely opened. That's why under Obama, we started allowing F1 and J1 visas of predominantly folks from terror-plagued countries, where we also stopped bringing in Christians who were oppressed.
Yeah, which is what I think Trump is trying to help, like South Africa, folks specifically targeted in the Congo and Nigeria, and especially those folks that are being persecuted now, and even in Syria.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Those are the people who need to be brought in here on asylum, not these America-hating Islamists.
So the one thing that we don't have pictures of, which I really want people to know, is while this was going on in Syria, there was a major parade in Great Britain, and they were cheering on the deaths of these Christians and Druze. And to me, that was astounding, because it goes back to what I've said many times. And you've taught me this. They start with the Saturday people, and then they come for the Sunday people, but they always cheer for their death. Always, no matter which ones they are.
The glorifying murder is a big thing, as we know.
Yeah. So on this segment, that's what we should leave you with.
Okay, moving on to another segment, and that is the absolute insanity that is Western North Carolina recovery. I'm going to play Maria Bartiromo's. Yeah. And there's still stuff going on. Look, guys, we have a deep state. We have deep-seated problems and a lot of corruption.
$1 million worth of damage to public property and more than $17 million in lost revenue. Approval of its
Okay. That was a screw up. Ready.
$125 million federal disaster recovery grant is contingent on the action plan that it must submit to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. But their draft includes DEI criteria, with the city saying that the impact of disasters is often disproportionately borne by vulnerable populations, including low to medium income households, marginalized communities, persons with disabilities, and other underserved groups. Joining me now in this Fox.
What in the world? Now, this is Scott Turner, who weighed in on this and said, this is not going to stand. We have a federal, I guess, an EO now, right, from Trump. Why are we still seeing these kind of mandates in these grants and in this distribution?
Well, Asheville's the wokest city in the Western region, and what Maria said there was actually a little bit low key compared to what was actually put out. It said directly that minorities will come first for funding.
Oh, majorly illegal.
Yeah, and what happened, which I think we have to highlight, Sloan, is that Matt Von Swall, our own very own Matt Von Swall, he saw that and put it on X. And Scott Turner, the director of HUD, the secretary of HUD, saw that and said, no, we're not doing this. So one of our own, who we love very dearly here, Clapback Matt, he put that
all caps, Matt.
He put that in front of the secretary of HUD, and they've been looking into it. Now they're not, eventually things are going to come around, but Asheville's going to have to change their tune. But it's not just Asheville that this is an issue for. We're still seeing in New Hanover County where they still want to put DEI in schools. And I alerted, Linda McMahon today. So in Western North Carolina, this is particularly egregious because the Buncombe County community was deeply affected. And to hold up their own funding for people because they're too stubborn to meet the law or the executive order really it is hurting the most disproportionate people, but they're doing it out of stubbornness, not out of, any goodness.
How stupid are they openly disclosing that they have a litmus test for and a triaging based on skin color of funding and help?
Well, I have to remind you, Sloan, you may not know this. Asheville is the only city in North Carolina that voted for reparations.
Right.
And they have the fewest number of minorities.
I think Durham did too. Yeah. Serious white aggressive guilt.
But here's the thing. Western North Carolina is not known, and I'm not saying this as a bigoted thing to say, but we're not known for having a large minority population. We're just not. Poor is poor. Color is irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the cost of living is very high in Asheville. I can tell you that. So you're not, as far as rural, I don't know if you could even look at Asheville and rural. That description said economically disadvantaged, right? There's a large swath of Asheville that is not economically disadvantaged. So what are they doing? Going and looking at bank statements? I mean, this is all, the fact that it's still in there is really pissing everyone off.
I don't think people understand what the drivers are in Asheville. So you have two different cultures. You have the workers and you have the retirees that moved there that brought their money from somewhere else.
Okay.
And they come with a lot of money because they're making money off the house they sell. They don't have to work. They're retired. They're multimillionaires. And then you have the working class folks, and there's really not a lot of middle ground in there. And and wages are low because the biggest driver in Asheville is tourism.
Okay. Which is struggling and which we need an infusion of cash. But look, it's not just this. Today, in a Senate meeting, this was said, and this is Ralph Hayes you're going to be looking at. He's
from Western North Carolina.
Western North Carolina senator.
Time in the summer.
But even lawmakers.
Wait, damn it. Okay. The laws must have changed.
Further up.
We're not there with this bill. We're not there with every dollar we've got in the state coffers. We need federal help.
This relief package and its edits still need approval from both full chambers. They hope to have it passed soon. A boost they hope will get them to July. But for businesses, any delays might be make or break.
Okay. So people are conceptualizing this as a dragging the feet moment. Ralph clearly says that there's something going on where they just can't meet. Are you understanding that? They just can't meet the bolus of cash. They need to get out there. What did you hear about this?
Well, so what I understand is they want to infuse more money toward the educational reconstruction of schools and to pay the teachers to work during the summers. And at first I was like, well, wait a minute. They didn't work when there was a hurricane, but the truth is some of them did. And a lot of these school systems are going to have to make up time, and they have no class. Some of them are just making do with what they have until the end of the year. Some schools are still having food bust in. They don't have cafeterias. They're still making, they don't have clean water. So I think while I'm not a big fan of Ralph Hayes, I just will let you know, he's not my buddy, especially when it comes to election integrity in North Carolina. In this instance, I believe he's correct. I think about Avery County, Mitchell County, Yancey County. Those counties really suffered, and they put kids in school conditions, especially even in Watauga County, where schools we should not have had kids in them. They were just not ready. So I believe the infusion he's asking for is to make the difference and make those school classrooms and the teachers in a way that they can teach in an environment that is good for kids, and they can pay the teachers to do it.
Okay. That sounds reasoned. I knew you would have the answer.
I really, when I first read it, I was pissed. I'm not going to lie.
You blew my up. You blew my
thinking about like how many places were affected by this And we're talking super rural
It's a large
people.
scale problem, guys. I mean, this is, if you're tired of hearing us talk about it, tough shit, because this is a major problem in this state, and it is compounded Matthew, which was another storm that wasn't taken care of. So all that is to say, we're going to keep this in the news. We're passing bills. We're delegating money, right? We've got a new accountability dashboard thanks to Dave Bolak, the auditor. So, I mean, everything in this state is geared toward all eyes on that recovery. People are tired of just blowing money and having it go nowhere, and people are still homeless. So,
well, and I think, it's one thing for you to expect a hurricane on the coastline and have a disaster recovery plan, even if it's not executed well. It is never expected in the mountains. And we have to recover the state on both sides.
Yeah, no, you're so right. That, flood insurance and all that. So that was, we're running at a deficit with that. So a couple things went on in the General Assembly today. Okay. No tax on tips. So overtime compensation under the Fair Labor Standards Act, bonus pay up to $2,500 a year is exempt. Tips, things like that. I mean, on the one hand, it's going to obviously boost take-home pay for workers who are, on kind of can be on the lowest rung, right? If you're working at Denny's or whatever. Maybe it's going to encourage productivity because workers will be, taking extra shifts. Obviously, though, the counter argument is it decreases tax revenue. What do you think?
Listen, I think most people that qualify for bonuses, $2,500 is nothing. Like that's the taxes. That's literally the taxes you pay on your bonus most of the time, because you are in a higher tax bracket when you're paid commission or you have a bonus. And I'm fine with people not being taxed on tips. I don't think that should have ever been a thing. It really makes people.
That's the thing. It makes you open for an audit, because if
it's not just that, Sloan. Here's the other thing. Most restaurants now make people pool their tips together so that people can make enough. And if you don't have to be taxed on them, that may not be as necessary as it was in the past.
Well, a lot of beauty parlors, a lot of haircut people, my massage therapist,
There's a lot of people that you tip and you don't even realize it. I go to the airport every week to go out of town. I constantly tip the lady that picks me up from the airport and takes me to the airport, because I don't park my car at the Atlanta airport. So you just don't even realize how many people you tip in a day. Your Uber driver, your pizza delivery person, all these people.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously got risk of abuse, et cetera. But, I like it. I don't like taxes. I know people don't like paying taxes. So
I'm hoping we'll get rid of the IRS one day.
That would be really cool. No, that would be really, really cool to do that. Now, there is some news about gambling, and we know that casinos was a very, very big deal. The last legislative session, Phil Berger tried to push something through for everyone. Phil Berger is basically the leader of North Carolina. He is the Republican House Speaker, Republican Senator pro tem. So
what's interesting about this story is the resort people that want to buy it and build it are from Catawba County. This is actually going into South Carolina, but even South Carolina has laws against this. They have laws against gambling right now.
Okay. Right. And so as I understand, this is going to be contingent on two things, right? The first is passing it in North Carolina. Is that how you understand it?
Yes. And South Carolina, because they don't have it's not legal to gamble in South Carolina in a casino. So both states are looking at doing, which bothers me, because what that tells you is that they're talking to each other.
The fix is in. The fix is in. They've got one hell of a lobbyist probably that's doing a wrap up on both states. Look, Phil Berger, we see you.
We know what you're doing.
Dog. We know, we know that you're trying to do this. And by the way, if you want to do it in Mecklenburg County, maybe I'd be more supportive, but he's trying to do it in a place that's very, Bible in one hand, Constitution in the other type of people, right? They're not going to go for it. They don't want it. And he's pushing it down.
Well, I think the other thing people don't realize is if you go do a Liberty score, or you look at the scoring on North Carolina Republicans in our legislature and in South Carolina Republicans, you'll see a lot of very common things, mostly that they're rhinos.
Mm-hmm. Republican in name only.
So that means they're going to work together to get what they want, even if we don't want it.
Right. Right. And then they've got those, lobbyists and those people donating to their campaign so that, when there's an upstart that wants to run against them, like maybe a Sam Page, who we're going to have on the show very soon, who is in running against Phil Berger, the thinking, conventional wisdom, is that more money equals more votes now.
That's not true.
We know
We've seen that's true. Not true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely have. So we will stay tuned, keep it evolving. Something else that happened today, I like it. There's been a huge response. New Year's Eve. Well, actually, I'm going to play the story, but we've already reported on this. And Margot, you're going to fill in the contours of this important story.
Conversation now looks different on New Year's Eve.
Hold on. Damn it. Okay.
It's so funny.
I am getting mad at this. All right, here we go. You ready?
Governor Roy Cooper commuted 15 death row sentences to life in prison, one of the last acts of his term.
That's 10% of our entire death row.
Including one in Catawba County, Nathan Bowie. In 1993, a jury sent him to death row for the murders of Nelson Shuford and Calvin Wilson after a disagreement. But this December, when the state clemency office asked the victims' families for input, all 9 were unanimous.
Everyone was adamant that they were against this commutation. I think they all feel like Nelson Shuford's life didn't matter, Calvin Wilson's life didn't matter.
That's why state Republicans have filed House Bill 64. It proposes that commutations or pardons by the governor need to be approved by majorities at the General Assembly first. Since this would mean a change to the state constitution, Riley isn't convinced it will pass.
Okay, so changes to the Constitution means it's going to be something that we're going to vote on.
That we have to vote on. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If it gets passed to the point that it can be amendment, we will have to vote as the state, as part of the state. Now, here's where, I when this first happened, it really upset me because I don't believe in commutations for murderers, and there were 15 of them. And I have to read them because I don't have all this memorized.
I seem to remember some of these same disingenuous carnival barkers on the Democrat side were all up in arms and in a kerfuffle about January 6th commutations of like a grandmother that stepped her tennis shoes over some sort of line that nobody saw, or they raised hell over that, but I've not heard them say anything about this.
We're not talking about grandmas who go into the state, into the national capitol being ushered in by a bunch of police officers. We're talking about a guy named William Robinson, 41, convicted in Stanley County in 2011, who killed one and injured another by shotgun after robbing them. He had a previous record, though, of felony murder. He was in jail for felony murder, got paroled, got out, killed 2 people, killed a person and robbed one, and then turned around and got put back in prison. And now Roy Cooper commuted his sentence.
Now, to be clear, this is taking him off death row and putting him in prison for life. So a lot of the times we hear a commutation, we think, that son of a bitch is out on the street. No, here's where we are, guys.
Or there's another one. This is another one. Robbie Locklear, 52, convicted in Robertson County in 1966, killed a victim, raped her, stole her car, and then set her and the house on fire.
Money.
And here's one in Union County. Daryl Strickland, 66, shot and killed a man just for no reason. No reason.
The county DA is on fire over this. In fact, DAs across the state are extremely pissed. Why? Because they work their tail off. There's a whole team of people. I mean, when you try somebody for something,
for murder, they're all murderers.
But you've got many levels. You're dealing with the family. It's like giving the victim's family the middle finger.
Well, and what people don't understand is 99% of the cases that a DA tries are pled out. The 1% like this, the reason they plead those out is because they need all their resources and all the money and time to try these kinds of cases. So they try it, they get it exactly where they need it, and now somebody comes along and says, all your work's for nothing. We're just gonna we're just going to put them over in that corner. They're not going to get the sentence that
And
they
for
earn.
for no reason. There's no stated reason. A couple of them are skin color.
No, that's not true though. That's what they say. That's the argument they want to say, that they were put in prison because of their skin color. But the truth of the matter is, if you murder someone, I don't care what color your skin is, you're going to pay the penalty for it. And to say that this is racist is not true.
Well, many of the victims were Hispanic or Black.
Correct. 90% of the victims were Hispanic or Black. And I think all of these commuted sentences are Black men.
Well, DEI at work again. DEI is always concerned with the perpetrator and never the victim. And most often, the victims that are most hurt are people of color.
Well, the bottom line is, when do the victims get their justice? Why are criminals being rewarded? And they're not just rewarded in the fact that
Democrats.
Well,
Democrats.
But it's not just the reward in that these criminals take up the majority of the time in a county to prosecute. That's a reward, because other people aren't getting their justice. They're getting a plea, so you get that reward of having your trial. And then you get them convicted, and at some point the victim makes a statement. They have people that do that. They say what they want. The judge, hands down the sentence, or the jury does, whichever way they choose. And then they think it's over. But here we are, and it's not over. Not only did they lose a loved one, but now they have to know this person that did it gets rewarded.
It's an indignity that I cannot imagine living through. It's terribly unjust. And again, there's one word for it in this instance and in most others: Democrats. That's the problem.
It was truly appalling to see that he did that. But we need to move along because we have a lot of other stuff to talk about.
Okay, we do. Trigger warning. We're going to talk about, damn it. Okay. I have to remember this. This is a very new thing, is this little policy they have. Okay, here we go. The Democrats are really, so here we have Cooper that pardoned, and this is his final, exit on the way out, pardoned 15 of the worst murderers you can ever imagine. And the Democrats are clamoring for him to come back. And I think the reason that actually Cooper's doing well is because Tillis and Cooper think, believe, and say the same things about the base publicly. They say the same things on Ukraine. They say the same things about January 6th and the base.
COVID.
The Tom Tillis's enemies seem to be in the base itself. He doesn't send fire down the lane to the bad guys. So tell me about this guy and what's significant about this guy retweeting this poll that shows Tom Tillis underwater.
Well, it's not so much that he said Tom Tillis is underwater, which was interesting. It's the tweet below that where he said we have to get a better and he's not in North Carolina, by the way. He said you have to come up with a better candidate than Mark Robinson. Mark Robinson isn't even running. Which really tells you this guy's out of touch. But I think the bigger thing is we do have to come up with a candidate, because neither one of these candidates, one is the other. They're both the same.
Okay. Yeah. Well, they are. And I have to say that the reason why Cooper's likability's numbers are up so high is because the Republicans and the General Assembly and the Republicans leadership never laid a glove on him. They never took him to task. They never fought back.
No, they follow him. I mean, if you look at people like, let's just be honest. Michael Whatley, RNC chair, follower. Phil Berger, follower. Tim Moore, follower. They're all the followers. Chuck Edwards, they're all followers of this guy. He's the king, and he thinks he's the king in North Carolina. Absolutely.
Okay. Look, Democrats are worth going after. Democrats, like our governor, Josh Stein, is worth going after. He might be a nice guy, by the way. Josh, if you're listening, nothing personal, buddy, but your ideas suck, right? And the
Oh my
foundation
God.
upon which they're built, this light on crime, this open borders, right? This victims last and perpetrators first. That needs to be gone after. So I encourage more Democrats who are in the General Assembly, particularly in these hearings and in these interviews you're doing, name the enemy. Name the enemy.
And
Not
be
naming
honest
them.
about the spending. Be honest about where spending is going. It's not just name the enemy. You have to be intellectually honest with people. Pickleball is not where we need to be spending our time or money. And I'm not so sure we need a childcare bill, even though they
talk about that.
Yeah.
I won't be here Thursday, but we're going to talk about that. I will be at the party, but we have a special announcement about Thursday. We're going to announce it after the show. But the last thing we're going to leave off on is you know, we've been doing this now for what I want to say almost a year.
Almost. I thought about that today. I'm like, we're going to actually make it a year, Sloan.
I mean, we started off, this is a special project and we got a lot of support for this. We were just shucking around a little bit, right? We were going to cover during the campaign
election.
Right. And then it just kind of grew into people saying, wow, I'm not able to get any bill breakdowns or what's going on in the other counties without you guys doing it. And so here we are. Now, I think the left is learning something and learning that we have a news hole here where there's not a lot of people who are covering these bills and breaking it down. So the left has announced they are covering, and I say the left because most of the stuff they write is from the left point of view. They're partnering in public media statements to expand government news coverage, which we've been doing for a year already.
Well, and what's interesting is that they're followers in this. We've been doing it. And I think they see that people want to know what is government doing. And since there's no live access like C-SPAN to see it, they think they're going to cover it. Now, the challenge with this is these people are all leftists, every one of them. And you're not going to get, you're really not, I don't think, going to get
you. And we're open about it.
Oh, yeah. You know what you're getting, and you're going to know what you're getting with them. So now you have a way to compare. Here's the other thing that I think is a problem. Awesome, you're doing that in Charlotte and Raleigh and Asheville. A lot of rural areas don't get TV. I don't get any stations in North Carolina. If you ride the line,
they're watching on X. I'll tell you something. I went to Cumberland County this weekend, and it was great to see everyone. I mean, I had several lawmakers tell me that, thank you for promoting my bill because nobody understood it. And people don't have a way of seeing what I'm doing up here. And you to make that possible. So highest compliment.
Listen, I walked away from a pretty significant platform in TikTok because that's what I was trying to do, is get the message out about what was going on.
Yeah.
To come to X and to do this with you, because it's critically important that people have a way to understand what's going on in their government. And I do have to tell you, complimentary, I got the notice that you sent about the concealed carry call to action today. And Eric Stevenson and several others came on the Punch Bowl this morning and said they were going. So we are making a difference, whether it's at the upper levels in government or with the citizens. We are making a difference. Now, don't get on my Facebook unless you like to see the catty side of me, because that's where it hangs out.
That's okay.
But I'm glad we're doing this, Sloan. I feel like nobody has taken the time to really ask someone in government, what does this bill mean? Or even better, they'll send us the bill and say, this is what it means. And we'll ask questions.
We appreciate that. We appreciate the relationship that we have with a lot of you guys that are writing the bills, and spirited discussions in good faith done with the other side. Sometimes we do agree with Democrats, right?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, there are several things I do agree with. There's one of those guys on X that is a diehard Democrat, but he has great policy structure on education. It's not the same as most Democrats. He believes in vouchers. I love that guy's perspective. On everything else, no. But on his perspective on vouchers, I'm okay with it. You're not. I know. I don't remember his name.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, look,
And I'm fine to say on X to
talk
people
about
that
it. We need to talk about policy. We need to get back to talking about policy. Now, coming from somebody that's just been dogging the hell out of Democrats for the last 15 minutes.
which
Well,
is so not like you. I'm just kidding.
I don't know what's gotten into me tonight. I am offended by the soft on crime approach and by the perpetrator first automatic reflexive stance that's taken by Democrats.
Well, and juveniles being out of jail because, like, listen, if you're going to use the narrative that their brains aren't developed and they shouldn't be in jail, then don't be shooting up kids with hormones and say their brains are developed and they can be a man when they're a girl. I mean, that's just, you can't have it both ways.
It's a shifting sands of justification.
Right. And I would say that that's the problem I have the most with the left is they can't stick to a story and be consistent across the board. They just cannot do it.
Manipulative, right? We know it's manipulative narratives to get what they want by and large, right? Am I saying they're like top shelf devils? No.
And
actually,
yeah, I would like to say more often that I support a Democrat on a bill than I do.
And we have,
but I'd like to do it more often. I'd like to see more middle. I would like to see us come more middle because there are some good ideas out there.
Right.
And I'm sick of
rotten Republicans out there.
Right. But there's a lot of dumbasses too.
Yeah. Right. Well, listen, we're starting to spiral. So, with that, I will have a couple of reports from DC and keep everything going. I think we're doing a show. You're going to do a show on Thursday that's going to be all GOP. So letting it fly. Educating about the convention, who's running, what's going on county by county. You're going to have a special guest that's going to be announced. It's the same time.
So I have an announcement. I do have one already booked.
Yay.
Sean Hendricks is going to come on the show and he's newly into the political sphere. And so I really want to spend some time with him talking about his observations coming in new. And because he's been working in Western North Carolina, but he's from Eastern North Carolina.
Everyone knows him. He was on the deck this morning.
And then, and then the bottom half of the hour with Sean, I hope he's going to get on. I'm not sure. Yeah, he hasn't answered yet, but the goal is to get Hunter Clark on, who is a parliamentarian. He's only 21 years old. He's very well versed. He's the vice chair of the 11th district, and talk about protocol and decorum in conventions.
I cannot wait to see that. It sounds electric.
Yeah. And then in the middle, we'll talk a little gossip because, I love to talk about GOP gossip.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And get Eric Stevenson on. See if he'll come on.
Well, I'm going to start the show by myself because I'm not going to let anybody else say the dirt about NC1 but me. I'll be talking the dirt about Harvey West, but I will be talking about him.
Okay, good. I can't wait. I think again, I'm at this big Purim party where, very important people up there, hundreds of people, but I'm going to stop what I'm doing. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do like men do at weddings, right? At receptions when a big game is on. They got an earpiece.
That's funny. And they're looking down.
Every now and again, they're looking down. I'm going to put an earpiece probably to listen to the show. And I can't wait.
Yeah, we're going to sketch it out tomorrow night. So we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Thanks,
Good night, everybody. We love you. We will see you on Thursday night.